It's gonna hit me. I love you, Mama." Those were the final words a 22-year-old young man typed on his phone, moments before a monstrous tornado tore through his home and ended his life. His name was Jeff Hunter, and his last messages have haunted America ever since. April 27, 2014. Arkansas stood in the path of one of the deadliest tornado outbreaks in modern U.S. history. Winds stronger than 170 miles per hour ripped apart entire neighborhoods. Families were destroyed in seconds. But among the hundreds of stories of loss, Jeff stood out because he left behind a goodbye. He wasn't calling for help. He wasn't searching for a way out. Instead, with only minutes left, Jeff picked up his phone and sent a heartbreaking farewell to the two people he loved most, his mother and his girlfriend. What exactly did he say in those terrifying final moments? Why have his words been shared and remembered across the world for more than a decade? This is not just the story of a tornado. It is the story of a young man's final goodbye, and a reminder of how fragile life can truly be. April 27, 2014, began like any other spring Sunday in Arkansas. Families were gathering after church, children were playing outside, and the warm air carried no sign of the terror that was about to unfold. But by afternoon, the atmosphere had shifted. The sky turned a sickly green, and the air grew eerily still. Then came the sirens. Weather experts had warned that this was no ordinary storm. A line of violent supercells was marching across the state, capable of producing massive EF4 and EF5 tornadoes, storms strong enough to wipe entire towns off the map. Residents were urged to take shelter immediately. For the people of Valonia, a small town north of Little Rock, it was already too late. As the tornado approached, its roar grew louder than a freight train. Trees snapped like matchsticks, houses disintegrated in seconds, and cars were hurled through the air as if they weighed nothing. Survivors would later describe it as the sky falling apart. In the middle of this chaos was Jeff Hunter, a 22-year-old college student. He wasn't in a storm shelter. He wasn't in a basement. He was inside his family's modest home, with nowhere else to go. And when the warnings blared, Jeff realized he had only minutes left to make a decision. What he did next was not an attempt to escape, but something far more human. He picked up his phone, choosing not to fight against the unstoppable force outside, but to reach out to the people he loved most. The clock was ticking. The tornado was almost there. And Jeff's story was about to become one of the most heartbreaking moments of that tragic day. Inside his family's modest home, Jeff Hunter could hear the sound of destruction drawing closer. The tornado was less than a mile away, its monstrous roar shaking the ground beneath him. The walls rattled, the lights flickered, and every instinct told him the house would not survive what was coming. Jeff had no basement, no storm shelter, no underground refuge. He had only 4 thin walls and a roof that was about to be ripped away. In those terrifying minutes, the reality sank in. There was nowhere to run. He picked up his phone, not in panic, but in clarity. He understood the tornado was unstoppable. He couldn't fight it, couldn't hide from it, but he could choose how to spend his final moments. And Jeff chose love. He opened his messages and typed, first to his mother, who was hundreds of miles away. "It's gonna hit me. I love you, Mama." Shortly after, he sent another to his girlfriend. "I love you. I'm so scared." Each word carried the weight of a life about to be taken. His fingers trembled as he hit send, the house around him groaning under the force of the approaching storm. These messages were not cries for help, but declarations of love, simple, raw, and unforgettable. The tornado was seconds away now. Windows shattered, the walls began to tear apart, and as Jeff pressed his phone to his chest, bracing himself for the inevitable, he had given the world something far greater than a goodbye. He had given us a reminder of what matters most when everything else is stripped away. The messages Jeff sent that evening were brief, but they carried the weight of eternity. In just a few words, he captured love, fear, and the heartbreaking acceptance of his fate. To his mother, he wrote, "It's gonna hit me. I love you, Mama." A son's final cry, not of anger, not of desperation, but of love. It was a farewell from a boy who knew his mother couldn't save him, yet wanted her to hear his heart one last time. Moments later, to his girlfriend, he confessed, "I love you. I'm so scared." There was no pretense of bravery, no attempt to hide his fear. It was raw honesty, the kind that only comes when time is running out. In those words, he was not just Jeff, the victim of a tornado. He was Jeff, the young man, with dreams, with love, with fear, facing the unthinkable. When these messages were later revealed, they spread across the country, stirring emotions in everyone who read them. News anchors choked back tears as they quoted Jeff's final words. Strangers lit candles in his memory, and countless people admitted that, after reading Jeff's texts, they picked up the phone to call their own families and say, "I love you." Jeff Hunter's last messages were not simply words on a screen. They became a mirror, reflecting what truly matters in the fragile span of life. In his final moments, Jeff gave the world a gift, an urgent reminder that love is the last thing we cling to when everything else is stripped away. The tornado was no longer a distant roar, it was there. Bearing down with winds over 170 miles per hour, the EF4 monster swallowed the neighborhood whole. Witnesses said it sounded like the earth itself was tearing apart. Inside his home, Jeff clutched his phone to his chest. The windows exploded inward, spraying shards of glass. The walls groaned, bending under the pressure, before finally giving way. Within seconds, the roof lifted as if it weighed nothing, disappearing into the black sky above. Neighbors later described how houses around them simply disintegrated. One moment they stood, the next, they were reduced to splinters scattered for miles. Cars were tossed into trees. Power lines whipped through the air like deadly whips of lightning. Nothing could withstand the fury. For Jeff, there was no chance to run. He had already accepted that. As the storm consumed his home, he was thrown into the chaos, his last messages still glowing on the phone he had held so tightly. When the winds finally calmed, silence replaced the roar. But silence did not mean peace. The neighborhood was gone. Families emerged from the rubble, searching desperately for loved ones. Amid the devastation, rescuers found Jeff's body. He was one of at least 16 people killed in Arkansas that day. Yet his story stood apart, not because he perished, but because of how he faced those final moments. With fear, yes, but also with love. And that made his goodbye unforgettable. Jeff Hunter's life ended in the chaos of a tornado, but his words have lived on far beyond that tragic night. His final messages, short, fragile lines of text, became something larger than a private goodbye. They became a national echo. News outlets across the United States shared Jeff's story. His mother, devastated by loss, bravely spoke about his last texts, reminding the world of her son's courage and love. Strangers who had never met Jeff lit candles, wrote tributes, and wept for a young man they came to know only through a few words on a screen. But perhaps the greatest legacy of Jeff's messages was how they changed people's actions. Across the country, countless families said that after hearing Jeff's story, they called or hugged their loved ones, afraid to waste another moment without saying, "I love you." His final texts reached further than he ever could in life, touching hearts around the world. Jeff did not choose to be remembered this way. He was just a young man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yet his goodbye turned into something timeless, a reminder that in our most fragile moments, what truly matters is not possessions, not fear, not even survival. It is love. And that is Jeff Hunter's legacy. A legacy not of death, but of love so powerful that even a tornado could not erase it.